What's up, YouTube? Zachary Michaels here. I'm an actor, and this is An Actor Reacts. Today we'll be talking about episode 1 of We Are Who We Are, the new show from Luca Guadagnino. Let's discuss. Before we get started, if you're new to my channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and leave a comment below. We Are Who We Are is a limited series for HBO and Sky Atlantic, created and directed by Luca Guadagnino, the famed director of Call Me By Your Name. It's a coming-of-age story set in an army base in Italy. The series follows two American 14-year-olds, Fraser Wilson, played by Jack Dylan Grazer, and Caitlin Harper, played by Jordan Kristine Seamón. The series premiered on September 14, 2020 on HBO in the United States, and is set to premiere on October 9th, 2020 on Sky Atlantic in Italy. Okay, so I'm excited to get into this recap review. Now, I've reviewed a couple shows on my channel so far, but this will be the first one that I'm going to try to do week to week. So bear with me if this is a little rough, But I thought this would be a good show to start off with because it seemed to be right up my alley. Like, I could tell from the teasers that this was going to be kind of a cinematic, slow burn type thing where you really get to spend time with the characters, and character development for me is always number one when I'm watching a new show. I guess that's the actor in me. I just always want characters that I can really get to know and understand and kind of dig my teeth into, and I think this show is going to give me that, especially after watching this first episode. And then, if you know me at all, you know that I love a good coming of age story. There's just something about seeing people discover themselves that I just love in TV and film. And so, like I said, this show seemed right up my alley, so I've talked enough, so let's just get right into this recap review. Okay, episode 1, right here, right now, number 1. In this episode, basically, we're introduced to our main characters as Jack's character, Fraser, and his two moms move on to this military base because his mom, Sarah, played by Chloe Sevigny, is going to be the new commander of that base. Now, right off the bat with them, I was noticing some red flags, especially when it comes to Fraser's relationship with his mom, Sarah. It was just really weird. We first meet them, they're at the airport, and Fraser, I keep wanting to say Jack, but the character's name is Fraser. Fraser's bag got lost on the way to Italy, so they're trying to find it at the airport, and he's kind of behaving very childish because his bag has been lost, and that wasn't necessarily a red flag, just because at 14 I maybe would have acted the same way if my luggage got lost, and honestly I probably did act that way at 14. But I think it was a minor red flag because his mom is about to be the commander, and he's just so ill behaved right off the bat, and they don't really seem to have control of him. So I just thought that was interesting for the commander's family to be so wild, I guess. But again, maybe not that big of a red flag because he's only 14. But then the actual red flag came in 3 seconds later when his mom gives him a bottle, one of those mini bottles of alcohol. And she just seems okay with he's 14. I get they're going to Italy, and I'm not quite sure what the drinking age is in Italy, but I know things are different than the US. But it didn't seem like that was a new thing because it was Italy, because he asked for it, and she's like, don't you think it's a bit early? It's well, yeah, early in his life maybe, definitely early in the day as well, but for sure early in his life to be drinking alcohol. And then she's only a few sips, and then he just chugs down the whole little bottle, and he's thank you, mommy. But so that was right off the bat, I'm okay, this is weird kind of dynamic in this family. And then what else? Oh, and then I just think it's funny seeing Jack Dylan Grazer as this kind of rebellious offbeat character. interesting clothing choices. I did kind of like some of them though, even though they were like strange. I was like, oh, this kind of works. But it's interesting seeing him as this like kind of punk rock kid. I wouldn't say punk rock, but he gives like this eccentric alternative vibe because the only thing that I've seen him in is It, and he was like super on it and studious in that movie and kind of like germaphobe and stuff. And here he's just like, ugh, he's like out and ready to roar with how like eccentric he is. The painted nails, the like bleach blonde hair with the like roots out, the outfits. Very interesting character, and I think he's done a pretty good job of it so far in this episode. But let's see what else. So yeah, she let him drink the alcohol. Okay, and then something else that I thought was weird in their relationship. Like once they, they move on from the airport, they're picked up, they get to the base, and then they're moving in with the house. What's the mom's name? Sarah. Yeah, Sarah. She's trying to set up this something, and she like cuts herself, and then Fraser goes and like starts sucking her finger to like get rid of the blood, and I just thought that was so strange. It's like it feels to me like they have this really kind of unhealthy like attachment to one another. It's very like strange. Like I would not be sucking my mom's finger at 14 years old. That just, I mean, I guess it could be looked at as innocent, but with some things that we see in a relationship later on in the episode that we'll definitely get into, they definitely have like an unhealthy, maybe even borderline toxic relationship in this show. Um, it's just like they have like no boundaries and like an odd sense of codependency. And then I'm also curious what the dynamic is with his other mom named Maggie, played by Alice Braga. Um, Now I was getting like a vibe that she was like a stepmom maybe because he doesn't seem to be as close to her, or actually he does kind of seem close because we see their relationship a little later in the episode, and he does seem close to her, but they seem like they have like a healthy mother son relationship versus the one that Sarah and Frasier have. So I'm interested to know what that dynamic is. Are they like both his moms from the get go? Because I think they said something about like they went there on their honeymoon, which was 14 years earlier, and he's 14. So I'm thinking that maybe they're like, both his moms from the jump, even though she feels like more of a stepmom right now. But I don't know, that dynamic interested me too, like why he has such an attachment to one, and then like an unhealthy attachment to one, and then what appears to be a healthy relationship with the other. So I just thought that was interesting. And then let's see. So once they're on the base, they're moved in. Fraser goes and he's like exploring the base. And then he ends up at the high school, and he runs into Caitlin and her group of friends. And weirdly enough, he starts taking photos of her as soon as he sees her. And that is, I don't know. He takes a lot of photos in this episode, but I don't know. There's something like weird about that. Like, why are you taking photos of people you don't even know? But so he sees them in class. He takes a photo of them, and then he starts following them through the base after they get out of school. Um, and then they kind of catch him following them. Like they notice him, and he kind of like runs off in a hurry. And then he rushes into this like locker room where all these like men in the army are showering naked. Now this is an important scene because this was a scene that gave me a clue that this wasn't the show that I was expecting, and it's going to be offering me something maybe different than I thought going in. Now in this scene, like I said, he rushes away from the friends, and he goes into this locker room where these grown men are showering naked. You shower naked, obviously, but they're in there showering. Um, and he's like stops, and he's taken aback, and he starts staring, and he's staring at this one man specifically. And the man isn't like unaware of him. Like they kind of lock eyes, and like Jack's character, Fraser, is just kind of like stunned and standing there like a little in awe. And but the man is there like it what appears to be like some light flirting with him. He's like eyeing him and like smiling at him as he just stands there again naked, and he's like toweling himself off, just like smiling at him. And I thought it was a little strange. And then later on we find out that that turns out to be his mom Sarah's assistant. What's his name? Do do do. Jonathan, and he's played by Tom Mercier. Sorry if I'm messing up any names. I'm probably gonna mess up names throughout this, but Tom Mercier, who plays Jonathan, and again, that's his mom's assistant. We see him again later on, but there was this weird dynamic between the two that seemed kind of like light flirting. And then Jack is just, or Fraser, sorry, Fraser is there just staring at him until some of the other guys in there showering notice him and start kind of like teasing him, and then he rushes out. So I'm thinking that relationship might be something later on in this show. I kind of hope not though, just because like I know Luca got a lot of flack with Call Me by Your Name with Timothy or Timotei and Army Hammer looking like Timmy looking like a child and Army looking like such a grown man, and that kind of being like a weird dynamic to see on screen. But you know, they were both adults in that movie, but like Jack is actually a minor, so I'm just kind of hoping that nothing develops from that, even though it kind of looks like it's gonna go down that road, or at least it feels like it to me right now. But I'm kind of hoping it just stays in kind of the harmless crush territory. But anyway, moving on from that scene, we go and he goes and he's trying to like order a beer off this truck, and then we meet Brittany. She was one of the friends in the group, and she comes up to him and she's like, are you stalking us or something like that? Are you following us? And he's like, no. And let me just say that I think that Brittany is gonna be my favorite character in this show. Like right off the bat, I loved her. Um, what I really like about the character is that, you know, usually when you have a character who isn't like pencil thin, that you know, writers either make that character like super insecure and doesn't believe in themselves and thinks they're ugly and yada yada yada, and they're just like, you know, woe is me type character, or they go on the like extreme opposite, and it's like I'm super confident, and all these people are gonna like bow down. I mean everybody, because it's just like, or like they're like super sexual and da da da, and there's just, you know, they don't know how to make these characters like just normal people. And I feel like what we've gotten from Brittany so far is just a normal person. And also, I don't think I've said that Brittany is played by Francesca Scorsese, and I'm pretty sure, yes, that Scorsese family. But Brittany just seems like a regular person. Like she has some sass and some attitude, which is part of what I really like about the character. But it doesn't go like overboard. Like it just feels like a normal teenage girl, which I loved. But so she meets him. She kind of takes him under her wing, so to speak. Kind of shows him around the base, tells him about some stuff, and then she ends up taking his ID and running off, so he'll come with her and their friends to the beach. And then we kind of get the normal, the classic scene that you get in like coming of age stories, like that's them and that's them, and here's how the base is set up, and here's what you can do and what you can't do. You know, she gives all that exposition to us. But again, I really like the character, so I didn't mind going through that with her. Um, so they get on the bus and they get to the beach, and then we're kind of introduced to the rest of the friend group. This is when we officially meet Caitlin. Now, we don't really get to spend much time with Caitlin this episode. We do find out some stuff about her towards the end of the episode, again, which we'll get into when I get to that part of the episode. But we do get some clues early on about where she is in her journey of life. Like, let's see. Oh, so she has this like boyfriend, or I don't even know if he's boyfriend, but Sam, played by Ben Taylor, is like her boyfriend, or like this boy that really likes her and is into her. And he's like really on her and flirting throughout the episode. But she does not seem to be into it at all, like at all. And it kind of felt to me like, guy, get a clue. I don't think she likes you. But everybody around them seemed to be like egging it on. So I'll be interested to see where that storyline goes throughout. And then there was Caitlin's older brother, Danny, who's played by Spence Moore II. And then, shout out to Spence. I've been kind of following him for a little bit now. I think almost a year, or at least a couple months. And he's out here doing the thing. Like, he's on this show on HBO, the third season of AP Bio, which he's a main character in, just came out on Peacock like earlier this month, I think. And then he's also on All American, which is a CW show. Like, he's out here really doing the thing. Like, that's the goal. That's what I want to be doing, like, in the near future. So shout out to Spence out here, killing the game. But so we're introduced to him as well, and he's Caitlin's older brother. We learn that he has tinnitus, and I thought that was an interesting road to go down. So I'm excited to see where that leads with him. And then it looks like he kind of maybe has a little relationship or like a situationship type thing with Brittany's character, because he seemed to be a little jealous of Fraser. He's like asking, who's that, to one of his friends, Craig. And he's like, I don't know, you jealous? And he's like, there's other girls out there. And then he's like, none with a mouth like Brittany's. And so it seems to be like they have some kind of relationship thing going on. So I'm interested to see where that develops too. A lot of nice things that they're setting up in this episode. And then lastly, we meet Craig, played by Corey Knight. He is Sam's older brother, I believe. Yeah, he's Sam's older brother, and he like seems to be Danny's best friend. Haven't gotten much information on him yet, but I'm interested again to see where that character goes. So anyway, we get to the beach, we meet all those characters, and then, they're kind of vibing out. Oh, something at the beach. Fraser like curved my girl Brittany. She was like asking him if he had a girlfriend back in New York, and he's like obviously lying, or at least appears to be lying about this girl that he used to date. And she's like, "You didn't have a girlfriend." And she's like, what do you think about me? And then he's just like, "Is that the ocean that I hear?" And I was like, "No, don't do my girl Brittany like that." But anyways, then at the beach, he's not really vibing with anybody. Well, he's kind of distant from them all. He's not really vibing with them. Oh, another Brittany moment that just came to me when they're on the beach and she's like, "Walk for me." And he just like does it. He gets up and does what Brittany says and walking. And then she's like talking to Caitlin, like, he's got a big one. I can tell. Look at the way he steps. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, I really love her. She's like hilarious and witty and just kind of out there, but again, a realistic out there. Like, I easily believe she's a 14-year-old girl. Like, really good character. But then so Jack's character Fraser is not really vibing with anybody, and they're kind of making fun of him and his shirt. And actually, then in that we kind of learn that Jack's family is well off, or at least that his grandpa is well off, but his family, him and his two moms don't really see the grandpa that much. So that was another like Easter egg that they dropped in there that I think is gonna come up and become important in the future, because why would they tell us that? And the mom had like a remark about the dad too earlier in the episode, so I'm interested to see where that storyline goes. But so anyway, he's not getting along with them, so he goes into Brittany's bag, takes his ID, and then kind of just goes off on his own, roaming around Italy. He finds this kind of family, I guess, his husband and wife, or they appear to be, And I don't know if they were like part of the military base or whatever, or like involved with the army in some way, because they seem to be like sewing together uniforms or something. I'm not really sure, or if that's gonna come up, but he seemed to be really impressed with the uniforms that she was putting together, and he's like taking pictures of them. Again, him in the pictures, and then he takes a picture of the woman. So I don't know if that was important at all, but I just found, it caught my attention. But then they give him some wine, and he gets like day drunk on wine, which very well. Like, I'm not a huge drinker, but I remember once one of my friends, like, we were hanging out and they like brought some wine, so we were all drinking wine, and you don't really think much of it, but like I drank it and I felt a little something. Like, wine drunk is different. It kind of sneaks up on you and you don't really expect it because you're like, oh, this is just wine. But so he gets wine drunk, and then he ends up hurting himself, scratching his face, and then I assume he called his other mom. What's her name again? Maggie, I think. Let's see. Yeah, his other mom, Maggie, she comes to pick him up. And then we get to learn a little more about Maggie. She's the nurse on the base. And so she picks him up. It looks like she was on shift and she got someone to cover for her. She goes and picks him up. And we kind of see their relationship more. And again, it just appears to be more healthy. They have like like a regular mother-son relationship, and I actually really like the vibe that they have together. It seems really loving, like they genuinely have love for one another, and they kind of get into this conversation talking about Sarah. Like, the Maggie saying how sometimes when they're kissing, she doesn't know if Sarah's really kissing her or if it could be anybody. Like, they both feel like she's detached from them, and like Fraser says that like she loves you more than me. So they both have these kind of issues with Sarah. So I'm guessing she's a more detached kind of character, and the kind that you want, the kind of person that you really want to be around, but you always kind of get the feeling that they could take you or lose you, and it wouldn't really affect them in the grand scheme of things. So that was interesting, and seeing more of their relationship. And I liked how later on in the episode we like see Maggie, trying to help him learn how to shave. And I just like the sweet moments that they have, that Maggie and Fraser have together throughout the episode. So then she takes him to the hospital, and she puts a band-aid, cleans out his wounds and stuff, and tells him go to bed for the next day or whatever. And then later on that night, Fraser is interacting with his mom, Sarah, and it's this quick thing. So he was back in bed, and he was like staring at the picture of Caitlin that he took earlier in that day. And just, I don't know, it's just a strange little dude for sure. But anyway, back to that night with the mom. He's like in the kitchen getting the midnight snack. Sarah comes in and she's like, Maggie told me about you meeting the other kids today, yada, yada, yada. They're kind of chatting about that. And then she starts cutting the roast for him. And he's like, I want thin slices. She's like, it can't be too thin because then you won't get the flavor, yada, yada, yada. And then he's like, thin slices. And he slaps her. Now, this is when my toxicity of their relationship was 100% confirmed. He slapped his mom. If I would have slapped my mom like that at 14, I don't even think I would have been alive today to be able to make this video. Like, that's an epitome of like Caucasian parenting, when people are like, oh, white people this, white people that, when they're raising their kids. Because he slapped her, and she it's like she didn't even get mad, which is maybe a good thing, but she went into this like pouting, like she was like she went and pouting and started sitting on the counter and like holding her face. And then the two of them went through this weird range of like emotions in like a minute. Like she was like sad, and then like, oh, when you were young, you used to. I was the only one who you would let, touch your hair, and then she was like feeling on him, and he's like, stop, I hate you, and then he was like hugging on her, like whole, and then they're holding each other, and then he's like, you don't love me, and she's like, how could you say that? And then he like gets angry, and he's like, I hate you, and when you dance alone, and this and that. And then she's like, that's not true, dance with me. And then he's like, no, my life was perfect in New York. And she's like, you never acted like it was perfect. And then yada yada yada. And then he's like, you took me away from him. And then he like runs off into the laundry room, and she's like running after him. And now, something that I haven't mentioned so far is that throughout the episode, he's been like sending voice memos or something to what I assumed was a friend back home named Mark. And he didn't specifically say who he was talking about when he said you took me away from him, but I assume he's again talking about Mark. And I'm assuming that it was a little more than friends, like Mark was maybe somebody that he liked, or maybe like a boyfriend or something. I don't know. But that was kind of, even though they didn't specifically say who he was that he was taken away from, with like the little things throughout the episode when he kept messaging Mark, and then like him kind of eyeing the Jonathan, I think his name is, in the shower. I think I'm getting some levels of like he had like a boyfriend or something back home, and he's sad to be taken away from him. So that was interesting. And then, so we cut to the next day from that scene, even though I wanted that scene to go a little longer and kind of develop, and we kind of get the answers. But, I can't be mad at it. This is just the first episode. We still got 7 more to go. I'm sure we get all the answers that we want, because again, this is a show that focuses on characters, which I love. But anyway, so we cut to the next day, and it's this kind of transferring of the powers, I guess. I don't know. I'm not a military dude. But Chloe, or Sarah, is becoming the new commander in like this ceremony. And not too much happened in this scene, but there were a few little nuggets dropped, as at the end of the ceremony, like Sarah was kind of, there seemed to be some tension with her and the old commander. Okay, so like my phone cut out because I had, it was too full. So I had to delete some stuff, and it didn't record the end of the video. But luckily, I gone through most of the episode. I only missed like the last 10 minutes. So anyway, let's get back into the review. But so they're at the ceremony for the mom, and then at the end we see her and the old commander telling her about like, they had da 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 and this many rapes and this many that, and she's like, that was under your watch, commander. And I love her confidence in that moment. And I'm interested to see, I don't know if the commander is going to be sticking around in like another job, but I'm interested to see like if something becomes of their relationship. But we also meet Kid Cudi's character, and I know he's actually going by his real name in this. What is it, like Steve something, some massacre? I don't know, but I'm just gonna call him Kid Cudi. But Kid Cudi's character, we don't see much of him this episode, but we get some like a spotting of him. Like they show a shot of him when Sarah is giving her speech, and she's like, this is my first time as a commander, but I'm gonna do my best, yada yada yada. And they show his face, and he appears to be kind of resentful. So I'm guessing he was kind of up for that position, or at least wanted it, and was passed over for Sarah. So I'm guessing he's kind of bitter because of that, and I'm sure that's gonna spark some like tension between the two. So I'm interested to see like where that storyline develops into. But then after the ceremony, we were with Fraser and Sarah, and then we see Jonathan again as her assistant, and they're walking through the base. And now Jonathan doesn't even seem to acknowledge Fraser anymore, like at this point. But he's doing his job. Maybe he's just at work, whatever. But Fraser just seems completely like in awe of this guy. And then we do actually see a moment where Jonathan kind of breaks his like soldierly thing when this female soldier comes in, and she like gives him like a like cute little I see you, and then he like puts on this doofy smile. And so I'm thinking maybe something is gonna develop between those two. Maybe Fraser will be jealous of that. I don't know, but I feel like maybe some like interesting things are being laid out throughout the episode, and or maybe I'm just like overthinking that little look, and it was just like two co-workers being friendly to each other. But it looked like a little something a little more. But so we move on from that, and the day's over. We cut to the next day, and Jack is riding his bike, and he's wearing the same blazer that I didn't mention before that he wore at the ceremony, and it was a nice blazer. Now I would not wear that blazer, but I thought it worked for him. It was like it had like these mouths on it with like the tongues out, and it was kind of multicolored. Like it was a cool looking blazer for someone else. But anyway, he's riding to school his first day, and in class, he and Caitlin are just staring each other down. Like they seem to have this really deep connection with each other that they both like feel automatically, and that was definitely evident in that scene because they were again both staring at each other, and she didn't seem put off by him staring at her, and they just were like in a trance almost. But then that's all that really happened at school. We cut to later in the day. He goes home. He's changing his clothes into another outfit that was like, interesting. Not for me, but interesting. He's like, he puts on a yellow shirt, and then he puts on this like what looks like a baby vest thing, and it's kind of colorful. I think it had like some flowers on it. It was a really nice, like it caught my eye. Shout out to the costume designer for this show. I didn't look up your name to shout it out, so I'll just put it up on the screen right now. Shout out to you. You did your like some interesting choices for the characters, and I think they really work well. But anyway, so he changes, and then he goes outside on his bike, and he sees Caitlin riding off, and he starts following her. He follows her to this like bar, restaurant type thing, and there she is, or Caitlin is presenting as a male, and I'm not sure of Caitlin's pronouns, so I'm just gonna try to say Caitlin. But Caitlin is presenting as a male, and Caitlin is there flirting with this girl. And it's kind of like oh, you're an American boy from the base, and Caitlin's like, yeah. And then Caitlin ends up getting this girl's number. They do like little flirt exchange, and I was gonna say Jack again. Fraser is there like watching this the whole time, and Caitlin, after she gets the number, spots him and leaves. And then we cut to I guess the next day, and all the friends are at the beach again. The rest of the friends go out running into the water. It's like super windy, and then we just have Fraser and Caitlin sitting alone. And Fraser ends the episode saying to Caitlin, "So what should I call you?" A question that I am also wondering, and that is a great way to end the first episode after you've set all this stuff up. But that was the end of the first episode right here, right now, number 1. Now I really enjoyed this episode, and like the introduction of these characters, like giving some information, but not too much, so you still have something to get throughout the rest of the season, and just it was an enjoyable ride and set up some interesting things for the rest of the series. So let's get into my final thoughts. Okay, so again, I really enjoyed this episode. I thought it was really well done, well acted, well, directed, well, visually it was beautiful. Like, just so many good elements in this premiere episode of We Are Who We Are. Like, this is the kind of stuff that I want to be in. Like, this kind of real, authentic, organic feel. Like, it just feels like a slice of life, you know? Not too much, not too little, just like real, like people going through their day-to-day lives. It feels like we're just stepping into their stories, and it doesn't feel like a show almost, you know? That like slow burn, super character developed stuff. Like it's just really good. This is again the stuff that I want to be in. But this story was also different than what I was expecting. I only watched one of the teasers, and kind of what the feel I got from it was this was going to be kind of a Romeo and Juliet type thing. Like he was going to be the bad boy who she falls in love with, and you know, she's the good girl in an army base, yada yada yada. But this is not that. Like it has some of those elements. Like there are definitely kindred spirits, and you know, he's like bad boy, I guess. And you know, she's like the a good girl on the base, and her dad and her family and just seems to be like more militant. His is more lax. So you see kind of the opposing thing, but the difference is I don't after seeing this first episode, I don't think it's going to be a romantic connection between the two. You know, it may be because you know all this stuff is a spectrum or whatever, but it seems like they're more so going to be two friends kind of who just are discovering their identities with one another. Because I don't know if Caitlin is trans, or maybe Caitlin is non-binary, and then Fraser may be gay or bi, or I don't really know. Like there's a lot of interesting things that I think they're going to be exploring with their identities throughout the show. Um, I just again I really enjoyed it, and I like being introduced to new stories, like stuff that I'm not necessarily familiar with. Like I don't know if I've ever seen a show like this. Like yes, we have tons of coming of age stories and teen dramas, and we have a bunch of things with this kind of like indie authentic feel. But like specifically when it comes to Caitlin and Frasier, I don't know if I've ever seen something with the two main characters, male and female, and it just kind of being this identity discovery thing, and not necessarily like a romantic relationship. So that's just really intriguing to me because again it's something different and new. And even if I have seen something similar, this is taking a new, what I feel like a new spin on it. So I'm excited for that. And then I'm just again excited for all the stories that we're gonna see. I want to see more of my girl Brittany. Maybe if something's gonna develop with her and Spence's character Danny, I'd love to see some of that relationship. Like I'm excited for more of this show, honestly. And then let's see what else. And then there's oh, just like a few shout outs that I wanted to give and things that I liked throughout the episode that I didn't necessarily touch on in the recap portion of this episode. So first and foremost, I love the use of music in the series. I just recently seen Baby Driver for the first time because you know pandemic, you're at home. Else are you gonna do but watch TV and movies? But I just saw that for the first time, and the use of music in this show and in that movie are very similar because in this show the music kind of brings you into Fraser's world. Each song that he's listening to is where he is in his vibe and aura in that moment. Like I loved hearing Fraser's music during swearing during Sarah's ceremony when she's being sworn in. I thought that that was really cool to see kind of the contrast between his music and this kind of you know diplomatic thing that was happening. And also that was just a really, I connected to it so much, like his use of music. Like ask any of my friends, I always have headphones in, especially when I was like 14. And so that was just something like a real connection for me, like something really minor, but something that was just so real and authentic that and I'm sure many other people and teens can connect with, you know? Like music gets me through my day to day. Like acting is what I love the most in the world, and that's what's gonna get me through my life. Me acting and just striving for greatness in that as an art. But music is what gets me through the day to day. Like if I didn't have either one, I don't know how my life would be. So I just really love that minor thing that was just so real and I connected with. And then I also wanted to shout out the composer. What's his name? Dev Hynes. I thought his score mixed really well with like the music from other artists that they use, and it just really set the tone and the mood of the series and gave me that like authentic indie feel that I love, as well as the cinematography by Frederick Wenzel. The show just looks so beautiful, and I'm not necessarily one who cares about the cinematography. I guess like as long as it's visible, I'm like fine because I care about the character and the story first. But like with this show, I was noticing the cinematography, and I was really moved by it, like just how beautiful it all was, and the camera movements. Like sometimes shows when they're trying to give, or movies when they're trying to give you that authentic feel, they like the camera moves way too much, and then I don't like it, and it feels too artsy, and it takes me out of the story. But here the camera movements felt so smooth and slow, like you were really gliding with these characters and the slow burn, and everything came together really well for me. And then lastly, shout out to Luca Guadagnino, who wrote and directed this show. But I also wanted to give a shout out to the other creators and writers who are listed. There's Paolo Giordano, Francesca Manieri, and Sean Conway. Again, I'm sorry about names. I'm sure I butchered those. I try my best, y'all. But I wanted to give a shout out to them, as well as all the other writers and creators and everybody who had a part in this series, because I think just based off this first episode, everything has come together really nicely. And I know it takes a village to do this stuff, so I wanted to make sure everybody got their props. But that's all I got on the first episode. Again, I think that the Right Here, Right Now, #1 was a great pilot. I thought it was beautifully shot. I love the story. I love how character focused it seemed, and I think that it's set up a really good series to come. Leave a comment below. Let me know your thoughts on this episode. What'd you like? What didn't you like? Who are your favorite characters? What are some things that you noticed that I might have forgot to mention in the recap portion? Leave a comment below, because I'd love to have a conversation with y'all. And then don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends and family, and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. Thanks for stopping by. See y'all next time.